all, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Katie and it is Pride Month. Happy Pride Month. I'm all rainbowed out today. You can't really see it, but I have this rainbow kitty on my shirt. I love him. All right, so for the month of June, I have decided that I will only be reading queer writers, LGBTQ plus writers. Do not take this to mean that you should only read books by queer writers during the month of June. Don't do that. Read diverse books all year long. But I'm very excited to show you some of the books I am wanting to pick up this month. Side note, TBRs are aspirational. I never want to put myself in a situation where I do not find joy from what I'm reading. So if halfway through the month I decide, I'm not really feeling that one right now, I probably won't read it. I also probably will not read all of these books in the month of June because there's 18 books down here at my feet, and that would be silly. But I'm excited to show them to you, and I am excited to pick them up soon, even if it's not during the month of June. Let's get to the books. Okay, first up, I have a lot of nonfiction that I'm hoping to get to in the month of June, starting with a graphic memoir. It's called The Fire Never Goes Out by Noelle Stevenson. Noelle Stevenson is one of my very favorite content creators. She is the showrunner for She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, which just finished. It's a Netflix animated show and it's wonderful. She wrote the graphic novel Nimona, which was very popular when it first came out. I have it right back here. So this is a memoir, and they've been very open with their journey with gender on Twitter and Instagram. They use any pronouns. So I'm just really excited to learn a little bit more about their personal life. Should be good. Next, I have two essay collections that I'm hoping to pick up in the month of June, and the first one is Notes of a Native Son by James Baldwin. James Baldwin is a Black queer icon and definitely a trailblazer. I read The Fire Next Time, another essay collection of his, back in February, so I'm very excited to pick up this one, which I believe was his first essay collection. I wanted to try to honor some queer history and not just read contemporary queer writing, so I'm very excited to pick this up. The other essay collection I'm hoping to pick up this month is Non-Binary Lives, an anthology of intersecting identities. I picked this one up from a queer-owned bookstore in Madison, Wisconsin called A Room of One's Own, who I've just started following on Twitter. They put out lots of great recommendations. This looks excellent. It's written by many, many different non-binary writers and activists, and I'm just excited to read about the diversity among non-binary people because there's so many different ways to be non-binary and so many different experiences. This is going to be incredible. I already know. Very excited to pick it up. I also have two nonfiction, more history books that I hope to pick up during the month of June. First, I have A Queer History of the United States by Michael Bronski. And then I also hope to pick up Transgender History by Susan Stryker. Now, queer history of the United States is sort of a staple in the queer history genre. Michael Bronski, the writer, is a Harvard professor, and he also has been involved in gay rights activism since the 70s. So he's kind of like an OG, old school gay liberation activist. I have heard that this book is not super inclusive of the trans experience, which is why I'm also hoping to pick up Transgender History, which I also got from A Room of One's Own. This is written by a trans activist, Susan Stryker, so I have heard that it's just one of the best history books out there that is also own voices. So I'm very excited to read both of these and hopefully learn a little bit because I know very little about queer history in the United States. I have two poetry collections that I'm hoping to read this month. A reading goal of mine for 2021 was to read more poetry, and I'm finding that maybe the reason I didn't like poetry is because I had mostly read poems by old dead white guys. So I am hoping to read two different collections this month. The first one is Black Girl Call Home by Jasmine. I've actually already started this one. And the blurb on the back says, "You are carrying in your hands a Black woman's heart." So this is a new release that is all about the Black queer feminine experience. So far, it's stunning. It's very readable. It's very approachable for someone like me who isn't super familiar with poetry. I also am hoping to pick up Don't Call Us Dead by Danez Smith. I read my first Danez Smith poetry collection last month. Stay tuned for that in my May wrap-up video. And this is the work that they are most famous for, Don't Call Us Dead. Danez Smith is a Black non-binary poet who also writes a lot about being HIV positive And their poems are just like beyond words incredible and so moving and surprising in many ways. I'm ready to be blown away by another collection of theirs. All right, so moving on to works of fiction I hope to read this month. First up, I have Tales of the City by Armistead Maupin. I've been trying to read some classics this year in addition to contemporary stuff. And from what I've heard about this one, it is considered a gay literature classic. So I had never heard of this until it was featured on the PBS Great American Read that they did a couple of years ago. This was originally a serialized book that was written in a San Francisco newspaper and is about the experience in 1970 San Francisco. So I don't really know anything other than that, but I've heard this is hilarious and campy and soap opera-y, and I'm excited to read it and then hopefully watch the Netflix show. Next up, a high priority read for me this month is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I love this cover. I picked this pretty much based on cover alone for my book of the month in the month of February. So this follows Grace, who has just graduated with her PhD and is celebrating in Vegas when she drunkenly marries a gorgeous woman who she does not know at all. And then I think she goes to live with her and they fall in love. And that premise is magical. And I've just heard such great things about this book. And I love to read romance in the summertime. Very much looking forward to this one. I know I'm going to love it. Okay, so this next book is maybe the book that I am most excited to read this month, and that is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Casey McQuiston is the author of Red, White, and Royal Blue, which was one of my favorite books of 2020, and this is another new adult romance. This follows August, a girl who has just moved to New York City, and it's not really going as well as she hoped it would go. And then she has a love at first sight moment with a girl on her commute on the subway, but the girl may or may not be from the past. It sounds like time travel and magic and romance and cuteness. I've heard the chemistry in this book is fantastic. I trust Casey McQuiston. This is going to be the romance of my dreams. I have very high expectations, so I definitely will let you know what I think. I'm so excited for this. Okay, the last group of books I'm going to talk about is this giant stack of YA that's sitting here at my feet. I love to read YA and middle grade, and I also read it very fast. So that's one of the reasons that I've picked out so many. Will I get through them all? Who knows? First, I have 2 advanced reader copies that I want to read and then give to my local little free library, starting with Rick by Alex Gino. Alex Gino is the writer of a really famous middle grade book called George, which was banned by many suburban conservative school districts, which means that Alex Gino is clearly doing something right. So this one follows Rick, who has just started middle school, and he finds himself having to choose between his best friend from elementary school, who may be a little bit of a bully, and a group of kids called the Rainbow Spectrum Club. I just love that gay middle grade books exist, because they didn't really, that I knew of, when I was a kid, which wasn't even that long ago. So it's amazing that this book exists. I'm excited to read it. The other arc that I'm going to read and then give away this month is called All Out, and it is a short story collection edited by Saundra Mitchell. The subtitle of this is The No Longer Secret Stories of Queer Teens Throughout the Ages. So I think this is a short story collection that is all historical fiction, which I think is really, really cool. I know there have been lots of queer stories that have been erased throughout history, and I think that was a really good idea for a YA short story collection. I do have one reread that I'm hoping to get to in the month of June, and that is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alira Science. This is one of my favorite YA novels ever. I remember the first time I read this book, and I got to the end and was crying, and then I just flipped right back to the beginning and read the whole book again. This is a gorgeous YA coming-of-age story starring Ari, who meets Dante, a fellow misunderstood and kind of loner teen, and the bond that they create over the course of a summer is just like, I have no words. Just stop what you're doing and go read this book right now, because it is stunning. The reason I'm rereading it now is, one, because I love it, and two, because there is finally going to be an Ari Dante sequel. I'm so excited. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to pre-order it as soon as it's available. Okay, so these next 3 YA books are books that I should have already read. They've been sitting on my shelf for a long time. One of my best friends, Lucas, is kind of an expert in gay YA in particular, and these are 3 that he's constantly on me to read. And he's right, I'm deeply ashamed of myself that I haven't read them. This first one is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzi Lee. This one got so many rave reviews on BookTube when it first came out. It stars Monty, who's like an English gentleman. This is historical fiction. And he goes on his grand tour of Europe, as privileged English gentlemen did back in the day. But while he's on this trip, he is starting to struggle with this big crush on his best friend, Percy. I've heard this is hilarious and adorable, and yay for gay historical fiction. Yes, please. The next book on my So Lucas Will Not Be Mad at Me Anymore stack is What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera. Both of these authors are like my favorite YA authors. So again, why haven't I read this? It's got a Dear Evan Hansen quote on the cover. What is my problem? Anyway, so this follows Arthur and Ben, who have a very romantic meet cute in a post office, but they're in New York City, so they immediately separate and don't think they'll ever see each other again until they do. Love it. This sounds like it's a sunshine one, grumpy one trope, which is one of my favorite tropes in romance. I'm sure this will be adorable. Both Albertalli and Silvera are known for their very witty dialogue and their beautifully written characters. So I know that I'll love it. I know I will. So I just need to get off my butt and read the darn thing. It's happening, Lucas, I promise. My final Lucas mandated read is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This was on a lot of best of 2020 lists last year. I picked it up for Christmas, and it's been on my TBR for months and months and months. So this is the month that I finally pick it up. This follows Yadriel, who is trans and is having trouble getting his Latinx family to accept him. He starts dabbling in magic and performs a ritual to find the ghost of his murdered cousin, Miguel, but he summons someone else instead. I've heard that this is a romance, so I'm very intrigued to see how like romance and magic and ghosts and how all of that works out, but it sounds awesome. And there's not a ton of Latinx trans representation in YA, so this book really made a lot of waves for that reason too, because it is an own voices book, which means the person that wrote it is also Latinx and transgender themselves. This is going to be dope. I know it is. See, Lucas, I'm making good. I'm going to read it. So lastly, I am hoping to read 2 young adult WLW books this month. WLW stands for Women Loving Women. The first one, I don't actually have the dust jacket, because I'm borrowing this one from my friend Lauren, but it's called The Love Curse of Melody McIntyre by Robin Talley. This follows Mel, who is a fierce high school stage manager who is determined to not fall in love with anyone in the cast or crew of her show, because when she does, the show and the romance both end in disaster. This, according to Lauren, who I borrowed it from, is just a love letter to the queer kids and weirdos in high school theater departments all across the country. Being one of those weirdos myself, I'm very excited for all of the nostalgia and the feelings that I get from this one. Finally, the last book that I'm hoping to read for Pride Month is The Stars and the Blackness Between Them by Janata Petrus. So this follows Audra, who has discovered that she's going to be shipped from Trinidad to the United States to live with her father after she is caught in a compromising position with the pastor's granddaughter. So that's a problem. And then she meets Mabel, who is an American girl, who then has to show Audra how to navigate in the United States as a Black queer woman. I think they fall in love. I've heard there's elements of magical realism in this, which is one of my favorite things in literature. I have a sneaking suspicion that this one is going to tear my heart into a million pieces based just on that gorgeous cover alone. So, We'll see. I'll survive. I always do. All right, so like I said, this TBR is ridiculous, and this is actually the shortened version. I had 4 or 5 books that are sitting over there that did not make it into the final stack. So, you know, we'll see. Stay tuned to see how I do with this stupidly ambitious TBR. There's books just like all over the floor down here. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books or if there's anything that you think I need to read for Pride Month this month. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And for now, that's all she read.